What did you come down here for?
I was wondering if you could drive me to pick up some Pokemon cards.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. This will be my full Rick and Morty Season 9, Episode 8 video. There were a whole bunch of Easter eggs, references, WTF moments, so we will break it all down. It almost felt like one of the biggest reveals of the episode is that Jerry is secretly one of the craziest members of the family, but maybe the show already revealed that in a previous season. The episode title was Rickuiem Mort, a Dream, a reference to the movie Requiem for a Dream, which is an absolute classic. If you haven't seen it, I would recommend checking it out, but it is way more hardcore than the events of this episode, or really any episode of Rick and Morty in general. The film depicts 4 characters affected by drug addiction and how it alters their physical and emotional states. Their addictions then cause them to become imprisoned in a world of delusion and desperation, so it generally is a very downer ending to that movie, unlike Rick and Morty, where they play it off mostly for jokes. The cold open this time begins with Rick in bed in his room in the house. On his nightstand, he has a Japanese drink called Ukon no Chikara, which translates to Power of Turmeric. It's a popular Japanese dietary supplement drink produced by House Foods, widely consumed before big nights out. So part of the joke here is that Rick is mainlining it because he's about to brew his very special vodka with a special potato in this special distillery, like a full-on Breaking Bad Walter White cooking facility, but he's making special vodka instead of the crystal blue. He's in the middle of reading a book, Being in Time, The Key to Authenticism. It's the 1927 magnum opus of German philosopher Martin Heidegger. It's a key document of existentialism. In the book attempts to revive ontology through analysis of deism, or being in the world. It's also noted for an array of neologisms and complex language, as well as an extended treatment of authenticity as a means to grasp and confront the unique and finite possibilities of the individual. So part of the idea is that Rick is getting really in touch with himself, like he's having his perfect morning, like this perfect moment as he cooks himself, make the Walter White Breaking Bad references, the perfect vodka.
Someone cooked here.
You also notice on his wall, it's all covered with the same pictures from before, like you see the Aberdolf Linkler one here, but it's all the same pictures that he's had through the entire series. A couple other interesting differences from other mornings is that he wakes up without a hangover, which is rare. Usually he's still drunk from the night before. But it's because he's so excited for the special vodka that he's going to be drinking. Goes to a special distillery level in the sub-basement, so like one of his sub-levels is just the distillery, makes a coffee, makes his breakfast, and it looks like it's being crapped out by some alien organism fused with the machine, like it craps out his breakfast, which he also feeds to a couple tiny alien creatures that he's keeping in a desk, revealing that they fart out sonic frequencies of whatever music he wants to listen to, basically his version of organic wireless noise-canceling headphones, but they're tiny living creatures, so like Rick Pods Pro. You also notice he's got audio cassette tapes for Sun Ra, who was an American jazz composer, Genesis, which is probably the Phil Collins band Genesis, not the Bible verses of the book of Genesis, because Rick is a staunch atheist, despite having fought God and other lesser gods. Derek Miro is a film composer primarily, and even though one of the tapes reads Big Sis, that's not a reference to Big Sister. Like, I know people would go crazy if they revealed that Rick had a secret sister that he hadn't told anybody about, that the show had not referenced until now. But Big Sis is a dance pop band, so it's just another music band that he listens to. In another tape that reads Gaslamp and Killer, which is a reference to Gaslamp Killer, who's just another musician that he likes. So duly noted, this is Rick's playlist. If you want to queue it up on Spotify or some other music streaming service, you can listen to what Rick likes to listen to. You also notice he has a book on alien farming on his desk, which is what he used to learn how to distill his special brand of vodka with the potato. He reads an alien newspaper called The Glorpulist, which is from the world that he steals the thermometer from with Morty later in the episode. But the title of the newspaper is also a reference to The Economist in real life. He notes all the articles and topics he wants to prioritize in his algorithm: anarchy, oligarchy in you, and all the tanks are just meant to be his highly purified version of water that he uses to distill his version of vodka with the special potato. Typically, potatoes are used to make vodka, even really special intergalactic, ultra-rare potatoes. I would not be surprised if this is now canonically the strongest vodka in the multiverse. Rick basically achieving nirvana here with his perfect booze that he is about to enjoy, but Morty destroys everything because he wants to complain to Rick asking for help getting more Pokemon cards, ruining the vibe. Pokemon has already been canon to the series for a long time. They did a whole real Pokemon bit in previous seasons when Rick was throwing actual real Pokemon balls at people. And even though they treat this like a huge bit, like Rick doesn't think that it was an emergency, if you ask an actual Pokemon fan in real life, they would tell you, yes, this moment was a dire emergency and they desperately needed to be bothered so that they could get more Pokemon cards. Setting up the plot this week where Rick wants to teach Morty to have more empathy for other people. Rick then shows a chart graphing his relative happiness over time since he started going on adventures with Morty before the events of Season 1, and you notice his happiness usually exists in an inverse relationship to Morty's happiness. Like, if Morty is happy, for whatever reason, Rick is unhappy and vice versa, making it kind of seem like Rick enjoys it more when Morty is upset, like he likes Morty being upset. With the exception being at the end of the graph here where both of them get really unhappy at the same time and things just drop off a cliff. I think that's meant to represent this moment of Morty destroying the distillery because Rick is super pissed off about Morty messing with his stuff, and Morty is unhappy because Rick is mad at him and he doesn't have the Pokemon cards that he wants. He makes bait and fishing metaphors, which are funny given that they had a whole bit about Rick using a password backup device integrated with fly fishing earlier this season, like he does a lot of fly fishing because he gets drunk a lot and forgets his passwords a lot. But when he says Morty was originally intended to be bait, it was for Rick Prime. This Morty is from Rick Prime's original universe. It's his original Morty. They covered this extensively a couple of seasons ago. The real reason why he kept going on adventures with this Morty, and he just became his Morty after he killed Rick Prime, is because he grew to love this Morty. So he actually does care about him despite current events, which they pay off at the end of the episode when they sort of flip roles and Rick becomes super empathetic like Morty, and Morty loses all of his empathy like Rick usually does not have empathy. So by the end of the episode, they wind up living in each other's shoes metaphorically, briefly, and it causes them to bond, and they fix a lot of the problems they had between them at the beginning of the episode here. We do not see any of the newer intro scenes in this particular episode. There's still 2 episodes left this season, so we'll see if any more show up in those episodes. Rick then sends Summer and Jerry on errands to replace all the gear that Morty destroyed, setting up the serial killer subplot in the episode, and reveals that his MX card is set to automatically block purchases from Jerry, but not the rest of the family, because he hates all the stuff that Jerry buys. It's so lame. Rick then takes Morty on an adventure to get replacement potato for a more special vodka and teach him empathy by injecting him with the creature called a sympathid, turning Morty's life temporarily into what he calls a Disney edit of a slasher movie, which I also think is meant to play with the whole slasher flick parody of the Jerry and Summer B storyline in the episode with the serial killer. Rick explaining that it's going to basically cause Morty to gloss over all the crazy things that happen, like his brain will just perceive everything in the best possible light. He then explains the only way to get another special potato is to win a Dancing with the Stars style intergalactic competition, so it's a little bit like Get Swifty, but they don't kill the losers of the competition at the end of it. They do a special wipe transition to a dance training montage, and this all feels very Silver Linings Playbook, with the 2 of them being the odd couple slowly bonding while they learn to dance together. Because of the sympathid, Rick sounds super nurturing to Morty through this whole event, like it sounds like he's the world's best grandpa for a hot minute.
Claire de Lune, epic remix from the Godzilla King of the Monsters trailer.
They do an epic dance routine, winning the potato, and as they return, he removes the sympathid, reality comes crashing down around Morty, and he just perceives everything as super crap again, like he did before. When we go to the Home Depot with Summer and Jerry, they treat the scene kind of like an ad integration, like the Home Depot mention. It feels like they paid Adult Swim a ton of money to be mentioned in the episode in this prominent way. Rick and Morty is famous for doing commercials like this. Rick jokes about selling out for all of them all the time. They use this to set up the bit with the cat and mouse killer buying up all the available 60-gallon drums because he's a serial killer and uses them to dispose of his victims. They watch him kidnap another woman in the middle of the parking lot in broad daylight. He's voiced by Andy Serkis, if you couldn't tell, big celebrity guest star this week. And using this to show you how Summer is kind of a psycho too, because she doesn't care about the woman being captured or killed. She just wants the drums, and she's worried that the cops are going to catch him and take all the drums. So duly noted, Summer is kind of a psycho, Jerry also a little bit of a psycho too, but we kind of knew that in previous episodes. I think that's the bigger joke, is that even though they play it like a big thing in the episode, we knew that they were kind of crazy, just low-grade crazy, in previous seasons. Later, the detective talks about this when he says we all have an animal inside of us, like everybody has the propensity to be a killer like this if they're pushed in the wrong direction. They start setting up the weird eccentricities of the cat and mouse killer, like he is a killer, he's a terrible person because he's capturing these people, but he has super high standards outside of killing people. Like, he demands to give Jerry exact change, and he thinks that Jerry, what he's doing, is more horrifying than what he as the cat and mouse killer is doing. Like a serial killer with a special code, kind of like Dexter. Maybe that was meant to be a Dexter reference. Morty uses another sympathid on himself just to make it easier to make it through the day as he deals with the bully on the bus, whose blonde bob feels kind of like a He-Man reference. We just got the live-action He-Man movie in theaters, too. He then winds up using his newfound empathy to be a therapist for pretty much everybody at the school. He starts with the bully, getting him to open up about his true worries. Apparently, he's really upset about people in America voting against their own interests. You notice the person in red hair sitting behind him on the bus has been part of the show since season 1, but he was drawn originally to be a Justin Roiland parody. So this is the closest that Justin Roiland has gotten to be on the show since they fired him. But it is not Justin Roiland who actually plays this character. He has no dialogue. There's no voiceover actor playing this character. Morty then becomes a much better student in class, which he's been terrible about before. He helps Mr. Goldenfold with his ex-wife, helps Principal Vagina deal with his unresolved trauma over being bullied in high school because of his last name, helps Miss Underwood feel better about herself after she was bullied by a bunch of kids, which they also use in the post-credit scene to pay off how the sympathid didn't actually help. What Morty was doing here during this montage wasn't actually helping people. Kind of negating all the good vibes that he had during this scene, because we're seeing it here from Morty's perspective, but then we see it from other people's perspective in the post-credit scene. While this montage is happening, they play a more hopeful Alanis Morissette song. He stops a fight between a couple people, he grows a massive plant in the school garden, he does charity work at a local soup kitchen, repaints over a bunch of graffiti cleaning up a building, helps an old lady with her groceries, then hangs out with the principal and a man he helped out earlier, seeing all these shapes and patterns in the sky, sympathid, making everything in his life just seem way more amazing. But part of the joke here is that none of it was real, so you kind of wonder what was really happening during these other montage scenes too, probably really terrible things. Then back at the killer's house, he boards up the door, locking them in, and he's got the cat calendar on the wall, makes Jerry tea, but also has a picture of John Wayne Gacy. His apartment looks like it hasn't been cleaned in years like his house, but he's kind of a hoarder, and his house maybe belonged to one of his victims. They make it seem as creepy as possible, serial killer vibes as much as possible. When you really think about it, it seems like the tea set is the only thing in the house that has been cleaned recently. He really cares about the tea set, but nothing else. Some of them tries to steal the drums from his locked basement. There are many references to Silence of the Lambs, like the woman being trapped in the hole. Some are proving just how twisted she really is because she's more worried about getting the drums than saving the woman, forcing her to help with the drums, who then proceeds to call her out as they try to make them out of the basement. They have a really funny bit of Jerry getting way overexcited about his lie about being a serial killer, and this whole fantasy that he creates for himself, this identity, seems like it's ultra elaborate, as if Jerry has thought about being a serial killer at some point in the past. I think that's the real reveal here, is that Jerry has thought about actually being a serial killer at one point or another. That's why he's able to come up with such an elaborate lie so quickly, because he's already thought about this before. Last season, we saw examples of really twisted, evil versions of Jerry, so Jerry is capable of being like this. But the joke being here is that he creeps out the serial killer so much that the serial killer reports him to the police I have standards, you're crazy, you need to go to jail, not me though. Morty then tries to help Rick repair the distillery and be super helpful without Rick knowing that he's using another sympathid yet, but because of it, Morty doesn't realize that he's lost an arm and is a ton of pain here getting the thermostat, and because he's had it in for so long, it's fed on his empathy for so long, it is massive, and reality sets in, with it being a complete disaster, and generally the planet where Rick needed this device for his distillery from seems like a living hell. Rick does reattach his arm, so he seems like he's none the worse for wear as they escape, and he does get the thermometer that Rick needed, so the mission was successful. They revealed that the massive sympathid had completely consumed Morty's empathy center, so he turns into a massive jerk, insulting Rick, and the upside being Morty easily kills the creature chasing them without a second thought. And I think the comp here, the real joke, is that Morty is turning into a version of Evil Morty without his empathy. That's what's happening here. He's basically like the next version of Evil Morty. The original Evil Morty always talked to this Morty like he could be just like him, you're just like me, basically just push in the right direction, you're one bad day away from becoming me. That's kind of the vibe of the whole episode, everybody is one day away from turning from Batman into the Joker. The sympathid then climbs into Rick and he starts experiencing massive emotions and empathy like Morty just was, so the shoe is now on different feet, with Morty being more like Rick was with no empathy, more like Evil Morty, and Rick being more like Morty just used to be. Back at the killer's house, he tries to kill Jerry after Jerry tries confessing the truth about what really happened, saying that he's the monster, not him, the actual serial killer. And we get a really funny monologue from the police detective who almost breaks the fourth wall. He doesn't break the fourth wall for real, but there's this monologue about serial killers saying World War II screwed up a whole generation of fathers who then passed that trauma down to their children, who then became serial killers, like the origin of serial killers in modern America. He was voiced by David Camp, who's another celebrity guest during the episode. He goes on to say he doesn't agree with that conclusion about serial killers, thinking that all humans have a killer inside them metaphorically. Everyone possesses the capability to be a killer if pushed in the wrong direction. Like I said, it's the Batman in Joker reference. You're one bad day away from becoming me. Morty then saves himself and Rick as they fly off in the spaceship. He makes a Hallmark movie reference to Summer, and Rick says the same thing the police detective just said, saying everybody has an animal locked inside them. As Morty tries to convince Summer to leave Jerry to be killed by the cat and mouse killer because they can just get another Jerry from another dimension, which is something that Rick would normally say because he no longer has empathy right now.
Well, Dad's about to be killed by the police, so...
We can get another dad. What?
You also notice as the two of them jump back to their home dimension and barely escape, this alien force, the planet that they just stole the thermometer from, seems ultra powerful, so maybe they'll pay this off in some future episode. Like there's always some giant powerful race that always wants to kill Rick that pops up every once in a while. Back at the killer's house, the police detective references Waco, which was the events of the Waco siege of 1993, which was a siege by the U.S. federal government and the Texas state law enforcement officials of a compound belonging to a religious cult known as the Branch Davidians, which resulted in the deaths of all the cultists, meant to foreshadow the police killing the serial killer and almost killing Jerry too, like, oh, you want another Waco. Morty is then able to save the day by negotiating with the cat and mouse killer because neither of them have any empathy, giving him the ability to identify with him uniquely. And there's this profound moral message that he has about choosing to ask for help when you need it, but they pay it off with a joke with the police being super trigger happy and going full Waco, shooting him to pieces the second he comes outside. And the other joke being that they almost shot Jerry too, like almost shot him. They then end the episode with Rick and Morty bonding because they've kind of been in each other's shoes briefly, and now they understand where each other is coming from. As Morty goes back to his room, Rick also gives him the Pokemon cards that he wanted at the beginning of the episode, but ironically, Morty can't enjoy it because he still doesn't have any empathy. Rick then finishing brewing his special vodka now with the new distillery, and it's so powerful that it just winds up killing the sympathid because the alcohol is so strong, causing it to fall out of his head. During the post-credit scene this week, they showed the previous moment of Morty comforting Miss Underwood from her perspective, with the joke being that she's still super upset and he didn't help her at all because someone slashed her tires, another kid put period blood in her desk, she got a death threat, and complaining how she's underpaid for all the crap she has to put up with as a teacher, which is a very big thing in real life. Teachers in America, at least, are severely underpaid for how important they are to society. So duly noted, if you do have a teacher right now, your kid in school, be sure to appreciate your teachers. Everybody post all your reactions in the comments below and let me know if you spotted any Easter eggs or references in the episode that I didn't talk about in the video. My full episode 9 video will post next week after they release it, so be sure to enable alerts for my channel so you don't miss that. Everybody click here for that episode. I'll update the link as soon as I post it, and click here for all my other Rick and Morty episodes. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.